Do you think if Russia fought the United States in a conventional war, would America kick its ass? I can say without an ounce of ironic nationalism, given what's happened in Ukraine, that a direct non-nuclear conflict between Russia and America would be an overwhelming slaughter in favor of the Americans. The difference between our military and theirs is so much greater than I thought. It would be a fucking joke. Like, Russia is getting bogged down logistically on a front less than 100 miles from their own country. That is incredible. It wouldn't be that easy. It wouldn't be easy. It would be difficult. But we would win. Oh, would we win. Vaush, Russia is holding back. It's really not. Russia can't afford to commit more resources. The problem is their economy. That's the main thing. You can have millions of troops and all the tanks in the world, but you need to have the fuel, the logistical lines to supply them, the money to pay your troops. You need the economy to fund a war effort. America is one of the few countries on Earth with an economy large enough to fund that kind of conflict. The U.S. military has ungodly logistical capabilities. Yeah. One thing that I've noticed on the part of people in the online left, which I find a little bit disconcerting, is a lot of people in the online left seem to be under the impression that because America is bad, America is also incompetent. Now, don't get me wrong. America is incompetent in plenty of ways. It's, you know, it has made plenty of just mistakes in a you know, just in a procedural sense. But yeah, as Thana says in chat, we are the strongest civic entity to have ever existed by a large margin in all of human history in almost every way. Militarily and economically, America is unsurpassed contemporarily and historically. This is not like about praising or promoting or celebrating America. This is something anybody who dislikes America should be aware of. You know? Underestimating your enemy is a fascist characteristic because you essentialize. Because they are morally bad, they must be, you know, logistically bad. But this is not true. Obviously, something can be morally bad while being quite strong and competent. Like, for instance, a lot of people point to the, how would you call it, the kerfuffles to the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan as evidence of American weakness and incompetence. I don't think you guys understand. Look at what's happening to Russia right now, 12 days into Ukrainian invasion. They're falling apart. America occupied Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years while experiencing a boom economy almost entirely unaffected by it. Sure, we spent government money on it, but we have lots of that. I don't think, like, people don't seem to understand. We can spend, you know, billions of dollars every single week occupying foreign countries and maintain our hegemonic power. People talk about Afghanistan, Iraq, and Vietnam breaking America's back. They're kind of coping. Afghanistan broke the Soviet Union's back. America's economy didn't care. America's economy chugged right through these disastrous occupations, chugged right through the invasion of Vietnam with a draft. You understand? Knowing this, knowing how ungodly powerful and wealthy America must be to do this, is essential if you want to oppose it. While Russia also has the world sanctioning them, the relationships we have with other countries is part of our strength. Everyone is tied to the global economy. We will never be sanctioned like Russia has because we have the ties. The ties are a product of our strength. America also has a shit ton of debt from those wars, so? Who complains about the national debt? Whingers in Congress. Is that affecting your day-to-day life? Not much. In a lot of ways, that debt helps us. That debt is held in American dollars. If other countries hold on to U.S. debt in USD, that means that they have a vested interest in making sure the currency stays strong. American debt builds national power. Everyone's invested in America's strength. If we default on our loans, other countries die. The US dollar is the global trading currency. We are so strong that the health of this country is the health of the world economy. Directly. Not indirectly. Directly. Again, I say all of this just to point out that, like people on the left were mocking the State Department for getting the invasion time of Russia, incorrect because they were off by 4 days. 4 days. There is no entity on Earth with more intelligence capabilities than the U.S. State Department. Not by a mile. Nothing even comes close. There is no country, institution, entity, individual, company, nothing that knows more than American intelligence apparatuses. Why are lefties intent on pretending the institutions they dislike are weak? Very strange. You set yourself up for failure. They are not weak. They are strong as hell. Literally nothing you're saying about the US today did not apply to the UK in 1880. Hubris is poison. This is what you're doing, Lowlander. You think what I'm saying is hubris. You think I'm bragging. That's your framework you're applying to me. You think that what I'm saying is some kind of pissing contest. I'm factually describing the case here. This isn't bragging. You think of this, oh, it's propaganda. They know this, they say this, you know. No, what I'm saying is true. The economy of England in 1880 is incomparable to what we have today. Also, they were a colonial power. Most of their wealth came from them, brutally suppressing foreign countries in an unsustainable fashion. The fashion in which we brutally suppress other countries is much more sustainable, because we set up a global economy where it's in their incentive to allow us to oppress them. You see, we're much smarter about controlling the world. No country has ever been better at suppressing as many people as the United States. Not even close. We make our victims crave their oppression because their economies would break if we weren't exploiting them. Can you imagine? Has any other empire been so successful? Not once in history. Why would a leftist, a person who is politically opposed to this behavior, underestimate their enemy? It is beyond me. It is beyond me. You must know these things. This evil, you have to understand its strength. The British Empire directly controlled a quarter of the world, but through unsustainable methods. Rome came the closest, didn't it? Yes, and Rome lasted a very, very, very long time. America's only been around for 250 years, so it's hard to compare those things in a direct timeline sense, of course. Is America the modern-day equivalent to the Roman Empire, then? Don't draw comparisons. Let my statements lie as they are. You know, you can work around that however you like. But you guys understand what I'm talking about, right? About the strength? A lot of lefties would also prefer the other camp, aka China and Russia, to balance the world power. What do you think? I think if the Cold War taught us anything, it's that multipolarity between enemy countries with nuclear weapons is actually very bad and destabilizing. People treat multipolarity like it's inherently a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it can be a good thing. Do you really think the Cold War was good for national stability? Jesus. Now, multipolarity can be good. Binary multipolarity is bad, though. Multipolarity is fine as long as it doesn't lead to destructive... Wait. Genuine question, how powerful is China in your opinion? Not nearly as powerful as some people like to pretend, but still quite powerful. The conflict with Russia and Ukraine has really helped me appreciate how unique America's strength is. Do you like the US having to suck up to Venezuela for oil these days? Well, most of the oil we get, I'm pretty sure is domestic or comes from, Canada and shit. Maybe there are some nerds in chat who can tell me if I'm off base on this one, but it seems to me like a lot of the reason... Much of the reason why we trade with other countries for stuff like oil and natural gas, even though we have very large domestic production, is because we consider it necessary to maintain a good trade relationship with them in the event that we need it in the future, you know? We could purely, produce, distribute our own, or, do it with close allies like Canada and stuff like that. But there's a diplomatic value to maintaining trade relationships with those countries because they do have such large reserves. I refuse to believe that in the modern world war is happening because someone out there wants to reunite the Soviet Union. What's the real objective? Well, you say in the modern world, but, you know, the modern world's a silly place. It wasn't 100 years ago that, you know, Hitler legit started, like, World War II because he thought white people were better. Like, it's like the greatest world ever, and it was just this stupid fucking anti-scientific race theory, you know? Like, don't get too caught up on the belief that world leaders are rational and always act in the best interest of their countries. Especially dictators. China's flagship aircraft carrier is based on a Russian ship that has tugboats following it because it keeps breaking down. How embarrassing. Why does America have all the cool military toys? You know, it's kind of a loop, you know. America's participation in World War II led to us being in the position to, like, sell arms to a bunch of other countries that were directly affected by the war. In World War II, we got to dedicate our economy to war production without being bombed, you know, like France and the UK also tried to make stuff, but, like, their cities kept getting bombed, so, you know, France was occupied, so basically we got to do full-on war production in a country unaffected by war directly, like no fighting took place here except for Pearl Harbor. And then, you know, like, the war ends, right? And it's like, okay, so we made all these cool weapons, we have all these companies that make weapons, we're really good at it, and we make them pretty much the best in the world, you know, for the most part. In a lot of ways. America is the world's #1 weapons manufacturer country. By a pretty wide margin. Chat, who's second up? Like, we blow every other country in the world out of the water, right? In terms of the total productive capacity of the weapons manufacturers in our country. China? Might be China. China makes sense, but it could be one of the European countries. They make some stuff. Russia? Let's not talk about Russia's military right now, okay? France does a lot of military production? Yes, I believe so. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is that circumstances conspired to make America a very, very, very aggressive producer of weapons. And, of course, the biggest, you know, the biggest customers of those weapons manufacturers, usually the American government itself. It's China at 29%, then US at 17%. Wait, does China beat us out in terms of the total, like, gross domestic product of weapons manufacturers? That would be very surprising to me. Everyone else is saying that US is #1. Yeah. You know, there's a big old Boeing plant outside of Seattle that you have to drive by to get into the city from the south. It's massive. It's so big, it's difficult to even describe. You're driving along the freeway, and if you take a look off to the west, I guess, it's like the size of 4 college campuses right next to each other. It's just this endless field of hangars and office buildings and you know, like docks. It's just everything. It's everything, you know, all out there. I'm pretty sure it only produces civilian aircraft there, if I'm not mistaken. At least I've never seen military aircraft in any of the open bays, but it's possible that they just keep those ones, you know, closed up. There are military contractors there? Yeah, can't keep them out. For what it's worth, by the way, I don't really have a problem with arms manufacturing as a concept. I have a problem, of course, with war profiteering. These are highly overlapping concepts, but not perfectly overlapping. The main difference being that arms manufacturing is an innate fact of life in modern society that will exist no matter what. Capitalist countries, socialist countries, it doesn't matter. If you have a military, you have to have an armed military. War profiteering is not a necessary thing. It does not need to be done. Now, what I'd be interested in, and I am not well read on this, people often say that the military-industrial complex guns America up into conflict in order to, well, make money. Now, there is an element of this for which I wholeheartedly agree. Unreservedly, I agree. And it is that the toxic relationship between arms manufacturers and U.S. politicians leads to the Pentagon having ridiculously high budget increases year after year after year, which means, of course, that the U.S. gets to, have its billions of dollars of contracts put out for these companies, and they make a lot of money. This is something which I believe is factually 100% the case, inarguably so. I would sooner shoot myself than believe otherwise. However, I don't know, and I'd be interested in knowing, to what extent could it be said that influence from arms companies gets America into war? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, doesn't that make logical sense? If arms companies are using their political influence to try to, get the Pentagon to raise its budget to buy more weapons, wouldn't they also gun for war? And here's the follow-up that I have, the thing that I've been thinking of. Why would you need to? Like, do you need a war to continue to increase defense spending? Clearly not. Whether or not we're in a war, we keep ramping up the defense spending. So, is it possible that it's actually beneficial to prevent war but maintain war paranoia? That the arms companies would use their political influence not to get America into conflict, but to keep America prepared for conflict? I don't actually know. I'd be interested in seeing if there are any analyses of that. Does that make sense? Again, it has been a late night. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. But sometimes that paranoia descends into real war? Yeah, 100%. But it is important to distinguish between the direct and the indirect in this case. What do you think about the idea that America gets into wars all the time so our boys have military experience when we get into a real conflict, like to prepare? I don't think so. Keep in mind that for the past 20 years, our occupation in Iraq and Afghanistan have mostly just been a couple thousand dudes sitting in, dusty military bases, occasionally, driving around in Humvees to be shot at or have, an IED blow up underneath their tires. That sounds to me more like civilization logic, we have to keep fighting the barbarians so my archers, get rank 3, which means that they'll do more damage when they assault the German city of Hamburg, that type of deal. Which, good strategy in that game, but